Hello, ladies. My name is Erica, and I want to thank Kelly for asking me to do the live video to talk to you guys tonight. I was hoping, I have never done this before, so I think I should be able to see the comments below, but we'll see how it goes. So I was really encouraged when Kelly asked me to speak because I'm always thrilled to share my story, and I'm always honored to share what God has done in our lives. Hi, Kelly. And so I guess our journey began into motherhood. I have a 3-year-old daughter. Her name is Charlotte, and she is such a joy. She's great, and she just turned 3 years old in March, and she's also just, a typical 3-year-old, had lots of questions, and keeps me on my toes for sure. Keeps me going. Hi, Rachel. And sorry, I am a little bit nervous. So I'm hoping my words will come to me soon, as I'm shaking just a little bit. Let me just get my notes here. So when we had Charlotte, she was just about 9 months old when we found out we were expecting again. A little shocking, but excited nonetheless because Charlotte was a really good baby. And we then just prepared for a second child, and I was about 41 weeks pregnant, and was waiting for labor to start, just like most moms do, just like sitting around waiting for it to happen. And I went into labor on a Wednesday morning, labored all day Wednesday, kind of in and out with contractions and stuff, nothing consistent. And then Thursday came. I was supposed to have an OB appointment that morning. I called them and I was like, hey, I'm in labor. They were like, stay home as long as possible, stay relaxed. And so we didn't go to that appointment. And it wasn't until later on the afternoon that I took a nap and I ate something, and my doula called me and she was like, hey, so why don't you try to go see the chiropractor, see if she can do some acupuncture and try to get labor started again. So that's what we did. My husband came home from work and we went to that chiropractor appointment, and like I said, I was still having contractions, so we were like, okay, this is it. We're going to meet our baby soon, and we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. We had decided to be surprised. And that was exciting. So we're at the appointment with the chiropractor, and so for whatever reason, I had just mentioned to my doula, I said, hey, I haven't felt her move or felt the baby move in a while. What do you think I should do? And so she had suggested that there are some midwives that work out of the office, that work in the same office as the chiropractor. So they're like, they can check the heartbeat while you're there. It's no big deal. If you really are in labor, it will just give you peace of mind. So we ended up doing that, and for about 45 minutes, we couldn't find a heartbeat. And that was a little odd to me. My OB had never had an issue finding the heartbeat, so I was just like, wow, this is kind of just weird. And they were very reassuring. They're like, it could just be the positioning of the baby. We just never know. So we had decided to go straight from there to the hospital and just make sure everything was okay. Again, nothing really, there was nothing really scary about it. When I look back, there wasn't anything, there wasn't really any red flags, I guess I should say. At that moment, we were just kind of like, okay, this is just weird, and kind of an inconvenience at the time. We just didn't realize what was happening. I think that the people that we were with realized what was happening and were just very comforting to us at that point. I remember my chiropractor, who I had known about her, had had a stillborn about 6 years ago. I knew that about her. I don't know that she knew that I knew that. And she asked if she could pray for us before we left, and I was like, absolutely, yes, I will take all the prayer that we can get at this point, because this is a little confusing. And she prayed for us, and talking to her now, she says that she just knew that we were getting ready to walk through what she had already gone through. And when we got to the hospital, they did an ultrasound and confirmed that there was not a heartbeat. And of course, my husband and I still did not register what that meant. I don't know. I do know it was shock for sure. But I will never forget that my husband's very first reaction, very first reaction, is that he stood up at the edge of my bed and he raised his hands to heaven and he said, "God, we will praise you in this storm." And I'm still amazed that that was his first reaction. I'm still amazed that those were the first words to come out of his mouth. And it just set the tone. For sure, it would set the tone for how our family would handle this crisis. I'm still amazed at him and his leadership that he took. I will always just remember that moment. So we spent the next several days in the hospital. We chose to do a C-section, and it was good in the end. As much as I wanted to avoid that, it was good in the end because she came out as perfect as she could be. Just absolutely beautiful, and nothing physically wrong with the way that she looked, aside from the fact that her lips were very dark and her nails were very dark because of when they looked back, they thought that maybe she'd been gone for a couple days before we actually delivered her, and maybe like 2 days. So we were in the hospital for a couple of days, and then we had to say goodbye, to our baby girl. We found out she was a girl. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Her name was Millie, and she was 8 pounds, 8 ounces, and 22 inches long. But she opened her eyes for the very first time before her creator. She will never know hurt. She will never know pain in this earth. And I think for the first time in my life, I just wanted the Lord to come back. I was like, okay, I'm done with this world. I've had a daughter. I have a great husband. I have a great marriage. And at that point, I just said, I don't want to be here in this earth anymore. I want to be in heaven with Millie. And it was hard, obviously, to know that we would have to live without her. So we spent my husband spent the next 2 days planning her memorial service. We did it pretty quick because we have out-of-town family, so we didn't want them to have to leave and then come back, and this kind of seemed really daunting to have to postpone her memorial service. So we did it. She was born on a Thursday night, and we did it the very next Sunday, and my sister actually reminded me of this a couple days ago, that I stood up in the middle of worship and started praising God. And my husband and I would just chose, I don't think it was like, we're going to choose to worship God. It wasn't like this conversation that we had. It was just something that we've both grown up in the church, and we both knew that running to God was the answer instead of running away from Him. For sure. We still ask why. We still like why, not out of anger, I don't think I've ever been at that point, but just more like, well, why did this have to happen this way? Or why couldn't you, the all powerful God, chosen to do it some totally different way? And those answers we'll never know. I hate to say that, but it's true. And as I've read books and I've gone to counselor and I've gone to, just listened to sermon podcasts, all these things that I'm doing to like find these answers of like, why, that you can still learn in the why. You can still learn in that, when we don't understand, I think it's still such a learning experience. Let's see, where did I leave off? I'm trying to get back to my notes here. So that was Millie's memorial service, and then we had gone to some different groups, some different organizations for parents that have lost babies, stuff like that. And I just had always felt like something was missing from those groups. It was just like you go and you tell your story, and as much as it like can give a little bit of weight to Millie's life in this world, it was just like it just stopped there, and there was never any like encouragement for healing, and never any answer like Jesus is the answer. I was always just, I always left those groups thinking I'm a Christian and I feel empty leaving these groups, and I don't know how other parents who maybe don't know the Lord come away from those groups or just come away from a group and they don't know that there's maybe hope to see their baby again in heaven. And so that just really struck a chord with me. And I guess it was the summer following when we lost Millie that I really felt the Lord leading me to start a group. And there wasn't a group like that at my church, even though when I looked at my group of friends and looked at the people around me, I was like, this is such a need. There's like, and Kelly posted it, 1 in 4 pregnancies will end in miscarriage. And it's devastating, but it's so prevalent. And I realized that there wasn't that need being met at our church. And so I did start a group at my church. It's called Empty Arms, Healing Hearts, and it is for women who've experienced miscarriage or stillborn, infant loss, and even infertility, because I kept thinking like they every month that goes by, or every period that goes by, they're losing a chance for a child, and women like that. Not that I've personally experienced infertility. I definitely had to do some research for that, but the women that have come have been able to still meet the other women where we are in our journey. I think that I also went on this kind of period of just like taking care of myself health-wise, because we had found out that there had maybe, we don't know the answer of why we lost Millie. There had been a small blood clot in my umbilical cord, and so that made them think to test my blood, and so they did all these things that, without a definite answer. It was like, well, maybe this is what happened, but not really. Maybe this is it, but maybe not. So I ended up going through this kind of like health overhaul. I trained for a half marathon, and I ran that in honor of Millie. I got to this place where I was tired of, I'm a pretty energetic person typically, and being depressed was exhausting. I just hit this place where I was like, yeah, I'm just tired of being tired all the time. So I was gonna take care of myself and do things that I knew were gonna be better for me. So I just changed the way I was eating in hopes that would help us grow our family eventually. We didn't know if we could have more kids, or if this was going to be, this was it. We can't have more kids or anything like that. So we had to definitely answer all these questions as we were grieving Millie, but then also like we know we know we want more kids eventually. So we ended up finding out that we were pregnant just right after I had planned to start my group, and going into that, I was like, well, this is just really weird. I'll be honest. And I was honest from the get-go with the women that have joined my group. I find it odd that a pregnant lady would then lead a group of women who couldn't get pregnant or who had lost a pregnancy. And all along, I thought that in my head, I was like, God, this is just cruel or mean in a way. I was just like, why do I have to do it this way? We were thankful for the pregnancy, and again, just had a lot of questions going into if the blood disorder that they'd found out I had would let me keep a pregnancy, and all those questions that come that you can't answer from a subsequent pregnancy after a very traumatic loss. And one of the verses that I will go back to, and I loved this verse after we lost Millie, and then during starting the group, it was just kind of a key verse, but it was from Romans 12:15, and it was, rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. And at the very beginning of our loss, or just right after our loss, it was just apparent to me that this was going to help me get through certain things in life. My oldest sister, found out just right after we lost Millie that she was pregnant. And I rejoiced with her, because I told myself, if I expected her in my deepest pain, for her to join me in that, just is equal for her to expect me to rejoice and come out of, as hard as it was, for her to join me in my pain, that I could come out of my pain and rejoice with her. We were going to celebrate life, because it is so, just how does it work? Everything has to align perfectly to work. And so we were just thankful for that. And then a few months later, my other sister, I have two older sisters, she found out she was pregnant. So again, just a chance to rejoice with my sisters. And then when I started the group, it was the same thing. And the women in my group have done that, and my friends have done that. So it's been a key. The day that I started my group, there's just a lot of things coincide. The day that I started my group, we also found out that we were having a girl with our rainbow baby. And I remember coming home that day. I was a little upset that I had just prayed for a boy, because I knew that I needed something different. And we didn't get that because God knew differently. We had a girl, and so I went into her room and I started setting things up for her. Because up until that point, I think it was like 20 weeks. Up until that point, I had felt then that I had neglected my daughter. And I was like, oh my gosh, as a mom, like when I put it in that perspective, I was like, I couldn't do that anymore. I couldn't do that to the baby that was living inside of me. And as much as I was like, I miss Millie so much, but I want to focus on this baby, that I had to do something for her. I had to do something for the baby that was growing inside of me. And so I put her crib together. I started working on the nursery. I got out all of Charlotte's old clothes, because they were going to be born in the same season, so it worked out amazing. In that moment, it was so healing. It was just this moment of this, I'm choosing to do something good, and I'm choosing to be happy and to rejoice for this baby. And it's just been such a hard balance between the grief and the joy, and the grief and the joy, and then in the same day, it's grief and joy. And it's just still such a hard balance. 5 weeks ago, Her name is Cora, and she was 10 pounds, 2 ounces. And surprisingly, she's asleep in the other room. And as she's been here for the past 5 weeks, I'm realizing that there's always going to be a deeper and deeper layer of losing Millie. Because as much as I love Cora and her being here, she's already changed so much in 5 weeks. You know, they changed so quickly. And to me, it's just such a sad thing that I will never get to see Millie grow. And she will always be just a baby. You know, she'll always be just a newborn to us. And I keep looking up because her picture's right there on my wall across from me. I thought it was fitting to be able to look at her and remember her during this video. So yeah, I think that it's never going to end. And I'm prepared for that. But there's just been so many good things that have come out of it, and so many triumphs, especially during my pregnancy with Cora, because there was a lot of fear involved, and my husband and I had just said, like, we are just not going to live our life in this crippling fear that could have come from a pregnancy after a loss. And as we got closer and closer to the day that that Cora would be born, it was just very close to when we also lost Millie. So there was just I had to do a lot of relaxation, which is good for me. A lot of relaxation techniques during that pregnancy, and a lot of things that just were probably out of the norm for me, as a very high energy person. But yeah, I think, well, some of the books that I was going to say that I had read, and I'll put links to the books in the comment section after the video. After we lost Millie, it was called I Will Carry You, and it was about another family who had known that they were going to lose their baby because it wouldn't be compatible with life, and had still also just chosen kind of praise him in the midst of the storm. And I just think that was a very perfect book for me to be able to, like, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to react, because God's people go through suffering. Our reaction is it's everything, because people are watching. And to who God is in those moments is very important. An organization I did want to mention was, I'm a part of the St. Louis chapter called Lullaby of Hope, and they who are struggling with infertility, or have had miscarriages, or have had infant losses. And I think Kelly posted another organization, and I've never heard of them either, but that's another great organization that's sending out information on how to deal with grief, especially losing a child. And I'll put a couple other books there in the comment section of books that I read, or even podcasts that I listened to, that kind of have helped me along this journey of grief and joy. So I hope you guys liked that, and I guess that's it.